Good morning. What a delight it is to be here, and I thank you, thank you, Bob, very, very much. I'm really excited to have this opportunity to speak with all of you today, and it really is a very critical time, as you know, and thank you so much for accommodating the schedule. It's a crazy couple of days here with, we're just back and trying to organize, as well as the lame duck session, which begins tomorrow. I just want to say to the Congressional Progressive Caucus and to my friends, colleagues but real friends, Lynn Woolsey and Barbara Lee, who always stand strong and fighting for the values that we hold. And Lynn is a champion for working families as the chair of the Education and Labor Subcommittee and active on worker protections, fighting to keep the Bush administration ensuring that regulations are there to keep America's workers safe and thriving. And you all know Barbara Lee. I am proud to serve with Barbara on the Labor HHS, and that's Health and Human Services and Education Appropriations Subcommittee. Whether it is prioritizing health disparities or education funding, she is fearless in taking on the battles that matter. So I thank both Lynn and Barbara for co-hosting this effort today. Eric Lotke, thank you and the staff at Campaign for America's Future for making the conference possible. Bob mentioned our history. We have been long-time friends and allies and collaborators with both Bob and with Roger. With Bob, we do go back to Countdown 87, the campaign to end contra-aid. Truly one of the best experiences of my professional career. And I thank Bob Borisage and others for allowing me to be able to participate in that effort. And Roger Hickey collaborated with long ago as he was leading EPI, the National Center for Economic Alternatives. I just want to say a word about the Campaign for America's Future, because you've done more to truly illuminate the devastating impact of this administration's policies on middle-class families. And as we look ahead today, few people are doing more to highlight a clear, a compelling, and a progressive path forward. And we are grateful for that as we keep our commitment to these progressive values. We're here because it's a time to steer our economy back in the right direction, to make opportunity real for American workers and for their families. The latest numbers indicate that the economy is losing jobs at the fastest rate since 2001. We've now lost over 1 million jobs this year, most of which have come in the last 3 months. The unemployment rate is 6.5%, the highest level since 1994. The projections, as one projection I heard from a group of leading economists about a month ago in the conference room in the Speaker's office, was that we could potentially get to 8% before the end of this year. To recover from this deep economic recession and to help a middle class that has been hit hard by stagnant wages, soaring bills, rising health care costs, and a financial market in crisis, we need to take urgent action. We need to focus on American jobs and move to long-term growth. This is not just about helping those who have fallen out of work, though that is critical. This is not just about a stimulus for tomorrow or for next month or for next year. Our priority must be to move from jobs recovery to growth for all in this nation. And I believe that making good on that promise will require job-creating investments in ready-to-go transportation, energy projects, maintaining highways, rebuilding bridges, transit, water systems, alternative energy, green jobs, school repair, all to create good jobs that cannot be outsourced while spurring economic growth and putting our nation on a better path, not just today, but for the future. Earlier this fall, despite White House and Republican opposition, House Democrats passed an economic recovery package that included $34 billion in funding for infrastructure. That included nearly $13 billion for ready-to-go highway infrastructure projects. The Senate blocked the recovery package this fall, but and this is in my view, with our economy at stake, inaction is unacceptable. If we cannot pass it again this week, and I'll be clear, I believe it is unlikely. I was at a meeting last night with the Secretary of the Treasury and with the Fed chairman, and there appears not to be any interest in doing anything on an economic recovery package. And with the stalemate in the Senate and the Republican opposition, I don't think that we can get there. I think the best we'll get out of this several days, maybe the extension of the UI, the unemployment insurance benefits, and I don't know what is going to happen with regard to the automobile industry in that effort. So if we cannot pass it again this week, it will be our first priority when we return in January with a new Congress, a new president, and a large majority. Elections have consequences. And we should not think small. We must be bold and ambitious. We will help states and localities who are facing massive mid-year budget shortfalls to prevent cuts to the critical services our communities rely on every day, from police, firefighters, schools, to healthcare services for children and seniors, to ongoing state and local building projects. Additional funds in food stamps and for the extension of unemployment benefits. Effective programs that will quickly push significant funds back into our economy while creating a critical safety net for those who fall out of work. But beyond the immediate need for a broad recovery package, we must work toward a long-term plan for continued job creation and economic growth. That is what this conference is about. It's about investment. And that is why this morning I want to spend some time talking about investing in our national infrastructure, not just its immediate importance to our economy, but also to propose a new approach, a new realistic vision for investment and funding large, critical infrastructure projects. The fact is that in the form of roads, bridges, water projects, or schools, infrastructure represents the lifeblood of any economy. For every $1 billion spent on these public works projects, 47,500 jobs that cannot be outsourced are created, and $6.2 billion in economic activity is generated. At a time when unemployment is at its highest point in 5 years, opportunities for employment on these projects can be shared broadly, both among those who have recently been employed in good jobs and those who have had little or no opportunity to secure good jobs, and that includes women and minority communities. When we ease the burden on commuters, when we modernize our public transportation systems, or ensure we have safe drinking water, we are paving the way for new growth and opportunity. And we fail to do those things when we neglect our air traffic control system or fall drastically behind other nations in broadband adoption. We create a costly drag on our economy. The American Society of Civil Engineers estimates that we need $1.6 trillion over 5 years just to bring our infrastructure up to a good condition. That is not all. We need strategic investments, a new way of thinking to create a modern infrastructure system that will make the United States a model for the future and keep us competitive for generations. We have been there before. At the federal level, under President Eisenhower, our leaders recognized the central importance of a nationwide transportation system and began building the interstate highways that now connect all of our major cities and facilitate our ability to transport goods. We have had a bold vision, took rail across the nation, communications, electricity across the nation, and the federal government participated in those efforts. Times have changed, but the need for a big vision has not. Today, we must build green infrastructure that makes us more energy efficient and reduces our reliance on foreign oil. That means constructing smart power grids, designing buildings that consume less energy, making alternative fuels more accessible, diversifying our energy sources, and making public transportation systems more efficient. Many of you may have seen, and I thought I took it with me, but I may have not. It was in the, I think it was the New York Times several weeks ago, where we know in Iowa the Maytag plant went out of business, with a number of jobs gone in that regard. And today what's happening there, the turbines for wind farms, for wind energy, are being built. Now they don't have all of the jobs back, but they are on their way to getting jobs back so that you can link up these new efforts, these green jobs, with old manufacturing and make it new manufacturing to create good, solid, good-paying jobs for the future and do something about our energy efficiency and our independence from foreign oil. Identifying America's needs, however, is only half of the battle. We cannot achieve our goals without resources. To meet this challenge, create jobs, strengthen the economy, government must do more, to be sure, but that is not all. It cannot act alone. It will not succeed in a vacuum. With a national fix-it list growing longer and more expensive every day, and a federal deficit exceeding $450 billion this year, we're going to need to leverage the private sector as well. The good news is that the investors are there. According to one estimate, over the past 2 years, the world's 20 largest global infrastructure funds have raised nearly $130 billion. We need to tap into that and generate investment in rebuilding America. This should include creating a new independent entity that can take an objective look at public works projects, moving away from the earmark process, identifying projects of regional and national significance that can create jobs and stimulate growth in our economy. That is why I introduced the National Infrastructure Development Act, which creates a public-private partnership, the National Infrastructure Development Corporation, to objectively examine public works proposals and issue public benefit bonds, attracting private dollars to rebuild our nation's highways, roads, bridges, railways, water infrastructure, schools, and so on. Some might think that I just decided out of the blue to suggest this idea in the last several months. 1994, introduced the legislation. I'm very proud to say that. And at the time, we had the cooperation of public securities. We had the cooperation of labor unions together to move forward on a Rebuild America program. You will remember in 1994, amongst other things that happened, we lost the Congress. The Democrats lost the Congress. That was the last of the conversations at that time on a national infrastructure agenda. I'd also say very clearly, at that time, I was not only stymied by the other side of the aisle, there were folks on my own side of the aisle, and an administration that thought that we needed to move on a deficit first and then try to do some other things. So it was difficult. But we have now seen some of those same people on television and talking about how that at this juncture, and not just for the short term, over a longer period of time for sustainable growth, for sustainable recovery, that in fact, this economic recovery package, at the core of it, with investing in a job strategy that surrounds a green infrastructure and energy and the environment and roads and bridges and mass transit, is the desired direction to go into. And we also have economists on both the left and the right who believe that the investment ought to be significant as we try to move forward. I think it's probably because, Bob, and you've never known this about me, many years ago when I worked for the city of New Haven, I wanted to be the public works director. And it was the New Haven Register that editorialized against me, primarily for being female and that a woman should not have the job. So I never got the job, but I still long to be a public works director. And this is my way of getting back at the New Haven Register. So The plan that we have laid out is modeled after the European Investment Bank, the European Union's long-term lending bank, which for the last 50 years has contributed to the continent's integration by using the private sector to raise capital from around the globe to leverage investment in, among other things, transportation, energy, telecommunications. Now here in America, during the current economic crisis, federal funding and low interest rate bonds are more critical than ever. Local governments, many who are facing large budget deficits, have suddenly found that the years of excessive carefree borrowing at low rates are over. The soaring federal deficit that some predict could reach an eye-popping $1 trillion in the years ahead has created a serious economic drag and a discouraging ripple effect. All the more reason we need bold infrastructure policy and leadership to get big things right. The Obama plan similarly calls for the creation of a national infrastructure reinvestment bank to provide financing to infrastructure projects across the nation. The time is now to move and to act on this idea. If ever there was a time to start thinking big, it would be now. As I said earlier, elections have consequences, and this election said that our work must be done boldly in new ways where we remove the political barriers to immediate and to effective action. But it also says something about the strengthening the middle class and bringing back prosperity for all. Our nation has an obligation to meet the needs of its citizens. And today, I think that there is a shared understanding that we need big solutions which move beyond left and right and put hardworking families front and center. We have to answer that hunger with action and with investment, creating jobs and fostering real economic growth. I will say it again, infrastructure is the lifeblood of our economy. Keeping that healthy means making a commitment to improving surface transportation, the power grid, our telecommunication systems, in part by leveraging the private sector so that we can create jobs, we can strengthen our economy, become more energy efficient, and improve our way of life. It all begins, in my view, with a significant and a substantial investment in our infrastructure and with a commitment to rebuild our nation. I wanted to be here today, and the schedule could have precluded it, and the campaign made it possible for me to be here today. I believe so passionately in this issue, and I think we have the moment, I think we have a political will, and I think we need to translate that political will into the kinds of resources that are necessary not to have simply a program here, there, everywhere, but a national program and a commitment at the national level that rebuilding this country is the direction that we need to go in order to get our economy back on track, providing the kinds of jobs that are needed, the wages that are needed to get people in the short term and in the long term back to economic security. Thanks for listening to me this morning. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.